So I think this is a big part of the question, right? So how do you comply, and what are like some of the high level requirements, and how are you going to be complying with that? So as you could see, a lot of the individual rights, the consumer rights that we're talking about, most of the things could be accommodated on your website, like with the options about your policies of handling the individual data subjects. Data and how it is processed, who you're sharing with, and if the consumers are demanding the erasure or removal of their data, then like all those options could be provided right on your website. That will pretty much eliminate a lot of back and forth with your company in terms of how to implement these things. So obviously, we have a much more detailed compliance checklist in terms of how to implement each one of these areas, including, let's say, for example, how do you notify the data subjects, what kind of policies and procedures you need to develop, and then what was shared, what needs to be updated, and what should be shared, and how to train your staff, and what kind of information to be shared on your website and other things. We won't be able to get into the detail of all of those things, but the channel for some of those things could obviously be your website, right? To share your privacy right information, and right to access, who the data about the particular consumer, who you're sharing that information with, and then like where have you shared this information in the past, and other sort of things. And then all the other things that are listed in the individual rights section. So right to receive services on equal term, this is like kind of a discrimination policy or whistleblower policy that some people call it. If you seem to have raised some concern or complained about this particular issue, and then the companies cannot discriminate you, because like you've kind of did these things in the past. So that is the right to receive services on equal terms. That's about that. And then moving on to the security side of things, I have a separate slide. Maybe we will just jump right into that. So these are like the basic security requirement that you need to have in place if you want to demonstrate that you are following all the requirements of that particular 1798150, right? So obviously you need to have a security program in terms of who's handling what kind of data, and who are you sharing, who are like some of the vendors who are handling your data. I'm talking about electronic data. And then the security policy, how do you provide access, and how do you terminate access, and what kind of acceptable use policy that you have, and then the encryption, and the whole 9 yard with respect to the security best practices. And obviously, all the staff who are handling the consumer data, they need to have proper cybersecurity awareness training, and also like if they are violating any of your company policies, you need to have the sanction policies and other stuff. And then frequent security awareness training also needs to be in place with respect to the reminders and stuff. And then the fourth one is the personal security, right? Before you hire any staff for your company, then like whether you are doing proper background checks, termination checklist, and all those sort of things. And if you're having physical servers, data centers and stuff, like whether you have secure access to those facilities and things. And then when it comes to the general IT operations, then whether you have antivirus, whether you are monitoring all the activities, on your systems and the key, personal information system and other stuff. How do you handle disposable media and removable media and other stuff, and how do you dispose all those things? And then SOD is segregation of duty. So those are like some of the things you need to make sure that you have that in place. And then of course, with all your security, the best of the security controls in place, still like incidents happen. And then how do you handle those security incidents? What kind of procedures, escalations you have? And the last one is about the business continuity in terms of the backups, disaster recovery and resiliency and all this sort of thing. So as you could see, the data security is more comprehensive, and CCPA doesn't provide any specific requirement with respect to data security in terms of what is that a company needs to do in order to secure the data. Rather, it's more along the data security process, the best practices for data security and how you maintain the data within your organization and how do you share it and stuff. And then the last one is the service provider, like whether if you're sharing this personal information with a third party, whether you have contract with those vendors and what kind of clauses you have in those contracts in terms of further processing, further subcontracting, and the security aspect of it, and then the data breach clause, including how soon your vendor or service provider will notify you in case if there is a data breach and stuff. So those are like some of the things that you need to make sure that you have this in place. As you could see, like most of these things, the requirements and the three main categories: individual rights, security, and service provider. Security is going to be your the majority of the requirements that is coming in. And having said that, with respect to individual rights, what GDPR and CCPA is kind of forcing companies to implement is to implement a good data inventory and data mapping process, so that like the companies know how are they collecting, how are they processing, how are they sharing this consumer or the personal information within the company, within their system, and also with other third parties and stuff. So that is like one of the requirements as part of the CCPA, which needs to be published for the individuals to access, right? So and then like the bottom line, as you could see, CCPA, it's definitely establishing a new consumer privacy rights, and definitely expands the liability for a lot of the businesses. We know like several of the businesses are concerned about the cost of implementing the CCPA requirements and other things. And then it provides the rights to the consumer in terms of how the businesses are collecting, selling, are processing the information, and who are they selling it to and stuff. And then consumers essentially can enforce their privacy rights and the security rights, and then it could potentially translate to civil money penalties and other things. The idea with the California privacy right is, most of this enforcement, the penalties and other things that are going to come up as part of the CCPA violation is going to, kind of self-fund the whole program. And then like that way, like they California state can pretty much enforce consumer privacy rights across the board, at least for the California residents, right?
For more information, click on the link below or visit databrackets.com.